How many times have you felt embarrassed? How many times have you wanted to say something but just couldn't get it out, so you stayed quiet? How many opportunities have you missed or lost because of your speech? How much of your life have you rearranged because of your speech? My name is Michael Williams, and in this video, I want to just let you know that I understand exactly where you are and what you're going through. And the reason for that is because I grew up as a person who stuttered, but not just grew up as a person who stuttered. I also continued to struggle well into my mid to late 20s. And I'll share a little secret with you. Spanish is my second language. It's a language that I speak halfway fluently. But when I speak Spanish now, because it's not something I do every day, maybe I do it once a week, there are still times right now where I can't say what I want to say, where I struggle to get words out, where sometimes I have to let an opportunity go by because I can't say it. But I figured out exactly what I need to do to get myself to a place of fluency. And so I don't really worry about that. But the reason I'm letting you in on this secret is because I still know what it feels like to struggle, to stammer, to stutter, to block, to not be able to say what you want to say right now in Spanish. So, that being said, I just want to share a little bit about why I understand what you're going through, and that's one reason. But the other reason is because I can remember as far back to maybe the first or second grade, and I was sitting in class, and I remembered the teacher was going around and she was asking people to read. Now, you know how this is probably as a child or as an adult. You're sitting someplace, they're going around, they're asking people, okay, well, you read this and you read that. And so now you're looking at the paragraphs and you're saying, okay, where am I going to have to read? And you're scanning ahead to see if there's words that you're not going to be able to say and what you're going to, so now you're starting to get anxious because you're anticipating. I remember that happening. I remember there are times where it got to me and I could just barely get out the words. So they sent me off to speech therapy. I'm not even sure how often, maybe once a week or whatever. That didn't really help me. That's not to say speech therapy doesn't help. I think it can absolutely help, especially when people are younger. And sometimes it can help adults, but it didn't help me. Kind of just made me more frustrated. And so I grew up all the way from a very, very young age, all the way well into adulthood, stuttering, stammering. And what I learned how to do was to hide it. So rather than pushing words out, I would just be quiet or change the words around or scan ahead. There were times where you could see my lips moving or my eyes blinking, or I would cover or fake or do something like that. So often people didn't know because I was able to mask and hide it, but I knew. And this affected me in many different ways. It used to affect my self-esteem and self-confidence, and so I tried to counterbalance it. And I was able to counterbalance it by doing martial arts and doing some other things. And so that helped me to remain a fairly confident person despite having this. I remember choosing my college career, what I wanted to major in based on my speech. There were some jobs that I would maybe shy away from a little bit based on my speech, relationships and so forth. So because I stuttered, this affected every single area of my life, as it probably is and does and has been affecting you. So I totally understand what this feels like now. Most of you are probably watching this because you're at the place now where you want to do something about it. And you're wondering, is there a real solution that's long-term that can help you transcend this, that can help you transform your speech? And the answer is yes. And not just because I've done it myself, but because I've helped thousands and thousands and probably tens of thousands of other people do it through my courses. And just below this video, if you look down a little bit, you're going to see just one example. And the reason I don't have more is because often people don't want to show their before. But I will be working to get more of those. But you will see plenty of reviews that have video reviews of people who have struggled with their speech and have done videos that says, hey, this is where I'm at now. But my friend Julius was graceful enough and gracious enough to allow us to see his before and is after, and he's still doing well, and he'll continue to do well. Many, many of my other clients do well. And that's because the Pro 90D speech system is based on experience, yes, on my personal experience, but it's also based on science, and it's based on the experience of other people just like you. So how did this all come about? Well, 20-some years ago, back when I was in my mid-20s or so, I remember I was in an officer's basic course in Virginia, in the United States and Virginia, and I was selected to be in charge of my class. It was an officer's basic course, and I was the most senior member, so I was the class leader. So I was in charge of my class. And I remember standing before my platoon, and I needed to call them to attention, and for some reason I couldn't get it out. I couldn't get that word attention out. And it was really embarrassing. No one knew what was going on because I didn't lose my composure. So I called up my platoon sergeant and said, can you go ahead and call them to attention? I didn't tell him why. So he did. And then later I explained to the whole class, hey, sometimes I get a little stuck, and for whatever reason I wasn't able to call you guys to attention, but I would absolutely try to make sure that doesn't happen again. But thank you for your understanding. That never happened again. But I was always a little nervous and anxious about would that happen again. So it was very embarrassing for me to be a leader standing in front of my platoon and not be able to call them to attention. Well, shortly thereafter, I was introduced to a guy named Brian Tracy through his videos and audios. And a couple of things I learned from him. Number one, I learned about the subconscious mind, the power of the subconscious mind, and affirmations and visualization. And so I began to use this knowledge to help reprogram my subconscious mind, because I knew that's where it was at. I didn't stutter 100% of the time. There were times where I felt confident, I felt good, and I could speak well. I could also feel sometimes, it wasn't even words, it wasn't me talking to myself consciously, but you could just get this sense that I'm not going to be able to speak well today, or I'm not going to be able to say it, and it was a feeling, right? So you knew that's something that was coming up from the subconscious. So I learned about the subconscious mind from Brian Tracy. But something else, almost accidental, happened. I liked the way he spoke. At first I did, and I thought it was kind of boring. But after I listened to him, I was like, wow, this guy, his information is so compact, it's so deep, it's so dense. And just the knowledge and the smooth voice and the speaking style and rhythm really allows that information to penetrate. So he wasn't all over the place and like that, but it's just the smooth, calm voice that allowed the information to penetrate rather than the style. Style is great, but the style helped the information penetrate as opposed to the style being the primary thing. Oh, wow, this guy's a great speaker. I just love the way he speaks. Well, what did he say? I can't remember. He was a great speaker, right? So I was like, that's the kind of speaker I want to be. I want to be the kind of speaker where my voice, my speaking style assists me in delivering the message, that it doesn't take over the message, right? So I was like, I really like his style. If I could speak like that, it kind of fits my personality too. So what I stumbled upon was what we call observational learning or modeling. So I started to model Brian Tracy. So with the subconscious work, right, and with the modeling, I started to create my own presentations around time management and goal setting and purpose and so forth. And what happened to me, within about 6 months, I was able to stand up and do presentations with no notes, because I didn't really like to read either. Reading was a big problem for me. So I could do presentations, very structured, very organized, for an hour or more sometimes, without any notes, and be almost flawless. No stutter, no stammer, nothing like that, from modeling Brian Tracy. So moving forward, some years later, while my presentations were good, my conversations still struggled. They got better, but I still struggled. And I went to something called seminary. So this is where your priests and your ministers and your pastors go to become educated, to kind of professionalize their career. So I went there for about 4 years, graduated, was ordained, worked in the church for several years, And one of the things I learned while in seminary was, what's the difference between my speaking style and my conversational style? Because sometimes people can speak well when they've prepared, but then extemporaneously, they have a difficult time kind of speaking smoothly and relaxed and clearly and confidently and so forth. So what I figured out is that when I would present, I was in one mode. When I would converse, I would completely drop out of that mode, out of that zone, and drop back into my old style. So I said, wow, okay, so what do I need to do to fix this? Well, I said, what you need to do is just simply maintain that speaking style, take it right over, transfer it right over into your conversations, and then dial it down. Understand, hey, I'm in a conversation, I'm not presenting, I'm not preaching, so I need to dial it down a little, but just take it right over initially. I said, wow, so what does that look like? Well, when you're presenting, you're speaking with a rhythm, right? Your pitch is a little higher, right? So you have a certain flow, you're speaking with energy and enthusiasm. Carry that over into your conversations, but dial it down. Do not turn it off. Let me say that again. Dial it down, but don't turn it off. So as soon as I started to do this, as soon as I started to speak in regular conversations with friends and family, but just dial it down, my conversations went to a whole new level. And I can remember during that time, there was a moment where I felt like this big, wet, heavy black blanket had been lifted off, like I'd been carrying a weight around with me my entire life. And I could feel it being lifted off. And I remember saying to myself, wow, you can do whatever you want to do now, right? Your speech is going to be an asset rather than a liability, okay? Doesn't mean that my speech is flawless. Everyone has this fluencies. Trust me, 100% of the people who've ever lived and probably will ever live will have some disfluencies from time to time. They just often don't know about it. They don't think about it. They don't realize it doesn't bother them. People like us who have struggled with our speech, we may notice it, we may realize it, but the fact of the matter will be, we're all going to continue to have some disfluencies. It's just that now, when you go through this process, your speech will be one of your greatest assets. So once I realized that, I felt free. I felt free. So it's transformational, and there's a time where you can feel that too. So what I want to invite you to do is to take a look at this site, take a look at this page, and ask yourself, is this something that you really want and need to do? Because I just had a client tell me, you know what, if I really want to do this, if I really need to do it, I'm going to do it. If you really want to do something, and it's within the realm of possibility for you to do it, you really want to do it, or you really need to do it, you're going to do it. So if this is something that you really want and need to do, I can tell you personally, you can do it. I can tell you, and that's based on my previous clients and watching them do and helping them through this process. This is something that you can do. You can go from having your speech be somewhat of a liability to being one of your greatest assets. I've done it, but even if you don't believe that, just look at all of the clients that we have. And in fact, look at your own life, and you're probably going to see where there have been times where you felt confident, where you felt relaxed, and you were able to speak well around certain people, certain times, certain situations. That means that it's entirely possible for you to transform your speech. What the Pro 90 speech system does is it gives you a systematic, scientific approach, a process that you can follow every single day to help you do exactly that. When you work with us one-on-one, we're able to accelerate that process. So we have a self-study, and we encourage people to get into the self-study. But some people find that they get discouraged, they get distracted, they get off track, and so they need that accountability. And if that's something that you need, and it's something that you can afford, that you can find the resources for, then we want to encourage you to work with us one-on-one, because we've seen that it's accelerated people's progress by at least 10 times. What we mean by that is an average person that comes to us and works has been watching us, watching the videos, looking at stuff, and practicing here and there for a couple of years. They come to us, and within just a couple of months, they're way further along than what they were working on their own for 2 and 3 and sometimes longer. 2 and 3 months, 2 and 3 years, sometimes longer than that. So we can help you accelerate the process by at least 10 times, at least 10 times. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you understand, that I understand what you're going through, and that we have put in place something that can help totally transform your speech, your life, your career, and the lives of those that you're supposed to touch. So I want to encourage you to take action now. The time is going to pass anyway. Where will you be in 2 or 3 months? Will your speech be different? Will your life be different? Will you feel like you have greater hope, greater potential to do the things you've always wanted to do? Or will you be in the same place or worse? Right? Because you don't have to be. That's the thing. 2 or 3 months, you put in the time, you put in the work, life can be very different for you. I can tell you this personally, and my clients can tell you this as well. So once again, my name is Michael Williams. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to working with you.